Where do we want to go first in terms of our analysis today? What stuck out the last couple of days?
Caleb Downs making a pick is a nice little nugget for him. He punted that thing to the moon. Here you go. Here's the clip, back of the end zone, and
boom!
You think this kid was fired up?
Yeah.
To make his first interception off of Dak Prescott in training camp?
A nice play.
He had gotten so close a number of times, and he had gotten his hands on a couple balls throughout training camp, but he hadn't ever hauled one in and gotten the official interception by our unofficial statistics.
It was. I know it was a discussion amongst the group that night. Like, this is first one, right?
Right?
Yeah. Think so.
Because he had gotten close, and he did, several pass breakups, and he's had an excellent camp, and that's not necessarily graded on whether or not he had X amount of interceptions or not.
B minus, only had one pick.
Right.
No.
But no, it was cool to see him show that emotion.
Yeah.
Like, the celebration was.
Well, because he does seem to be so stoic.
Yes.
Like, he doesn't strike you as like the average 22, 23-year-old kid.
Yeah. But I think
he's also not picking off like the newest rookie quarterback that they just drafted. This is Dak Prescott he's picking off. And granted, like, for as much trash talk as there has been between the offense,
still.
But as much trash talk as there's been between the offense and the defense throughout training camp, you don't think it felt a little bit good to sit there right before things get really turned up? Maybe one of the last times he gets a chance to go against that unit in a moment like that, in front of a crowd like that. Mm-hmm. Oh yeah, he's juiced.
That's true. The crowd element I hadn't even really thought about. But no, I think that is just part of a larger picture, or he is a part of the larger picture that is the Cowboys really just secondary overall. And, when Christian Parker came in, one of the things that he talked about right at the beginning was wanting to be versatile, wanting to be versatile because that is how you're able to use disguises like he wants to. And you need players who can kind of slot in and out of certain positions. And we've seen so much of that. I thought yesterday was interesting seeing Savon Ravel getting reps with the ones. We talked about the fact that they just need depth at cornerback, and even if you're technically a number 2 corner, you're still going to see a very healthy amount of reps. You're going to see a lot of playing time on the field. So yeah, I think if we want to pull up the do we have the
defensive backs? Yeah, let's do VO6, Kelly.
This will give you a look at. Oh no! Instead, you get Mike. Just kidding.
Womp.
No, that's just as good.
I brought in 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 7, 8. So one that I missed.
No, I'm sorry.
The first one we call for.
Yeah, my bad.
We called for one. That's okay.
But yeah, here's a look at, you see the corners there, the nickelbacks. And yeah, that's technically how the Cowboys have kind of listed these guys out. But you've seen a lot of those guys make plays at different points in time. It's going to be interesting to see which ones, to your point, when regular season games begin, make the impact, because this is such a focal point of what they need in terms of the defense making a step this year.
That, and also as far as the depth goes, you don't know who will be needed when.
Yeah.
Because as the season unfolds, injuries happen. Obviously, Bland has missed a ton of time recently. You don't want to try and project that, but to have the knowledge that, hey, man, if we have to call on Kalen Carson, if we have to call on Ravel just to move over to the right side or whatever, they have the versatility for that.
Yeah, I think looking at that group, the ones that you're actually going to see make an impact during the season, barring injury, Durant and Ravel, Bland for sure, Downs obviously, and then for me, like, Kendrick and Carson probably. Like, Darian Kendrick has made some plays over the course of training camp. Like, I've been reasonably impressed with him. Carson was around a lot last year, but that's not exactly the world's greatest endorsement either.
Well, and he was dealing with injury as well.
That's
he missed
fair. Yes,
several games at the start.
And also, like, the other factor in this when we're analyzing guys that are from last year coming back, hopefully they're dealing with a better pass rush.
And better,
you know what I mean? So that makes everyone look better. So
yes.
That, but also it's such a different scheme at this point too, and maybe it does fit some of these guys better. But to your point, I mean, we watched these guys throughout camp. The thing about Kendrick that I've noticed is, like, every time you would see him come off the field, it felt like he was always still trying to learn more, like still pick up as much as he could from Christian Parker. I felt like he was always kind of hovering, and his reps essentially didn't stop when he came off the field. It felt like he was always continuing to try to absorb as much as he could. it's been interesting to hear some of the other players speak to that. Like we heard Barham talk about that yesterday. Is I'm always asking questions, whether it's in position meetings or whether it's on the sideline. It just feels like there's a different level of buy-in and effort from a lot of these guys. And Kendrick sticks out in my mind as one of the ones that's kind of fits that mold.
100%.
As far as the offensive side of things, I think there's also a lot to be said there when it comes to this final preseason game, determining depth chart there. And not just, obviously the wide receiver group, we've talked about that, Jonathan Mingo.
Yeah, here's the depth chart on the wide receiver side. Obviously, you're going to know Lamb, Pickens, and Flournoy up there. But after that,
Turp is a shoe-in because of his role and skill set on
Yes.
special teams.
But after that, it's kind of interesting.
Yeah.
Right? Like, MVS.
Are you not surprised by that? I was
a little
surprised
bit
by that.
I was surprised by that.
I wonder if, because they do it positionally, I wonder how much of it is just that they feel like maybe he's a better fit at the spot that Pickens plays.
Yeah.
Because I don't know, he hasn't been part of the discussion at all.
Right.
Well, and going back to literally since day one in Oxnard, he's had opportunities.
Yeah.
Right.
He was given basically the wide receiver 2 reps out of the gate, and he continued to basically not be able to take advantage of those opportunities. So yeah, maybe it is just
that's part of it,
factor.
but also our eyes have been on the at least on this list on the wide receiver 3 part. Like who will slot into the guys that will complement Lamb and Pickens when those two are out there.
Yeah.
And on that front, obviously Camden Brown injected himself in the conversation in a big way.
Mm-hmm.
But the question also boils down to Mingo in terms of how much of an impact will the Cowboys allow him to have to that same degree now that they have this depth at wide receiver? Because he did just make a play in the last preseason game. He's still a decent wide receiver.
That was also dropped in the bucket.
It's a
that was
great
an
throw.
amazing throw from Milton. I know y'all have talked about that quite a bit. But
that was as good as we've seen Joe Milton play ever.
yeah. But again, he had beaten his defender, and I think what's interesting to me on the Camden Brown, if we could go back to the depth chart look, is that they took Anthony Smith. I don't remember. I think he was their 7th round pick. You see there in wide receiver 1 behind Turp. Anthony Smith was their 7th round pick, or he was a late round pick for them this year. Camden Brown undrafted. And it just goes to show you, draft order basically doesn't matter. You get an opportunity. If you seize it and you take a stranglehold of it like Camden Brown has done during the last 4 or 5 weeks, you can make something out of nothing. And I think, if anything, this goes to show you that they should be able to sign whoever they aren't adding to the 53-man roster to the practice squad. And that gives you depth to rely on should anything happen to one of these bigger name guys.
Yeah.
I do wonder if Camden Brown has made enough of an impact to where if they don't put him on the 53-man, if he gets picked up by another team.
Somebody scoop him.
I just wonder, and that, you say the name Camden Brown outside of the DFW,
Who's going to know?
maybe
Right.
someone in Atlanta would know him because of his relation to Georgia Southern.
But the point being is, whether or not the public
That's
knows
why
him.
these scouts. That's why these scouts
Exactly.
make their money. They
Yeah.
know.
Well, and that's
They're
the
watching
thing.
everything.
Yeah.
They are the ones that are watching these preseason
Yeah.
games. That's about
We've identified
it's about
who's watching.
8% of the ratings right there is
Yeah.
NFL scouts around the league.
Yeah.
No, listen, every year there is some player on the roster that causes Cowboys fans to wring their hands like, I don't know, man, are we going to be able to get this guy through waivers? Is this really going to? Most of the time it works out because most of the time the other 31 teams around the league are doing the same thing.
And
They've got their own guys that they like, that they're worried about, not so much. But listen, the couple of catches he made against Seattle, that's enough to garner some attention. That is enough to make somebody else around the league go, he looks like he might be better than our 5th guy.
Well, and he's big. He's a big target.
And how much does the age versus compensation thing build into this? If it boils down to, for instance, Mingo or Brown on the roster, do you think we gave up a 4th round pick for Mingo, or Brown is an ascending kid who's 22, which is more valuable?
I think at this point they take the
The
potential,
22?
the ceiling, right? The potential ceiling.
Or do they want consistency in a year where they're thinking, the
I also
NFC's
wonder-
wide
Mingo
open.
hasn't really done anything. Like I don't know that there's
And
anything.
he's had a full NFL season with the Cowboys too.
Like a season and a half, right? Because they picked
Yeah,
him
they
up
did
in
bring
mid
him over,
24.
yeah.
Yeah.
So
And all of that time, what's he
Yeah.
done with it?
I also
know.
wonder
Like,
too, like how different the two of them are when it comes to skill set. Like they both remind me of big body targets that you can use in the red zone or something. I mean, Camden Brown has shown that he can
Go up
be an
and get it.
option, yeah.
Yeah.
On the deep ball as well. But I think there could be some redundancy there in terms of like, you're getting something very different out of Devontae Turpin than you are
oh yeah, right.
Camden Brown, right?
Yes.
With Jonathan Mingo and Camden Brown, I feel like there's not as much differentiating those two. So I wonder. And then there goes, it begs the question, do they keep 6? And if they keep 6, what does that mean for other positions on the roster?
Right.
Yeah. Now, the point that you made earlier today, and it's part of why we've got, if we can call up SOT 5,
Yeah.
because Mingo
Yeah.
himself addressed the fact that there's more at play here in terms of who makes the roster than just what you do at the wide receiver position.
Just don't let them go, you know what I'm saying? Special team help you make teams. So I'm pretty close to Mario Davis. He already told me growing up, you're not a 1 or 2 receiver. You got to play special teams. That's what it comes down to. Is showing effort so I can give me a spot on the roster.
What was different about this camp for you than ones of years past?
Feel healthy. Went through a lot last year getting hurt, trying to bounce, get my body. Trying to get healthy this all season. Caught the injury the first day of preseason, then OTA. So finally being healthy, training with some of that people this all season, getting a little foggy, but got my body back right. So I feel healthy coming in the couch.
So maybe that's part of it too, is that he wasn't maybe fully healthy, and so we haven't seen his best.
Yeah.
Also, like for those wondering, like he's not 30, he's 25.
Yeah.
So there's not a
Right.
significant age gap between
Yeah.
the two of them. If I was framing it that incorrectly earlier, I just wanted to say but 3 years is a significant runway for a wide receiver as well.
3 years in the NFL is an eternity.
Yeah.
3 years in the NFL for a lot of guys is a career.
Right.
So, yes. No, is there, let's say hypothetically, they go with Camden Brown and they cut Mingo and they feel like they need to better utilize their practice squad spots and they don't put Mingo on the practice squad for one reason or another. If that set of circumstances were to present itself, not saying it's necessarily going to, that might be his career.
Right.
That's the way this thing works. Like
Well,
you are in and out fast for almost everybody. The guys who hang around for 8, 10, 12, 15 years are 1 out of every 100 maybe.
Right.
And I guess if you look at last season as well, like Ryan Flanoy didn't enter 2025 as the number 3 by any stretch. I mean, he's probably the number 5/6. He talk about a guy who seized his opportunity, right? Like, and I bring that up because that could have very well been Jonathan Mingo last year, and it wasn't.
But
and he was dealing clearly with some injuries. He didn't feel fully healthy.
And not to diminish it either. A lot of it is circumstance. It's nice to have a great game when you're playing the Jets. Like that's how he made his name, was against a bad secondary. That
100%.
happens. That could be great. You know what I mean? But sometimes it's like, hey man, this is your opportunity. You're going up against the Rams secondary. Good luck this week. You know what
But
I mean?
I'm saying
Like,
he had earned that opportunity
Exactly.
over Jonathan Mingo in practices
Yep.
and in the chances that he got. I guess what I'm saying is like they were probably on a very level playing field last year. If anything, Jonathan Mingo probably had a slight edge.
yeah, because of the compensation, because of other factors. That kind
Yeah,
of thing,
because of Jonah's view of one of the worst trades ever.
For those that haven't been watching the show, he's been ragging on this
He
trade like
hates
every
the
chance.
trade with Carolina for Jonathan
Humble
Mingo.
Havad.
Humble Havad, yes. But it will. I
that's this
think.
league though. Like,
Yeah.
No, I know.
It's just
He'd take
you
weird-
get hurt at the wrong time. And that's that. Listen, we're going back to our conversation about the preseason.
Yeah.
And like, if there is intrigue here. It does it's not going to move the needle enough for me this week that I'm going to do that over. But like there are so many storylines to this thing because for a guy like Jonathan Mingo, who like he just said in that soundbite, he was battling injury. That's this league. You get hurt at the wrong time.
Yeah.
That may cost you your whole career. That's what's actually happening for these guys, and we're talking about significant money on the table that is possible to be made that you may lose out on entirely just because you got hurt at the wrong moment and I wasn't in top form
When I
that
had the
week,
during
that
window.
month, whatever, when CeeDee Lamb got hurt. So the opportunity went to Flanoy because he was playing better at the moment. And I'm not saying that necessarily Mingo would have been playing better if he was fully healthy.
Right,
but I'm
but-
sure in his own head, he's thinking, God, man, if I was right, that should have been my rep. That should have been my opportunity.
Yeah.
And it goes by the wayside, and instead Flanoy's the one who makes the play. Flanoy's the one who gets the opportunity. He's the one who grows in scale in the minds of the Cowboys' offensive, coaching staff.
And now look at him.
And also fans. Like, that's the other side of
Yes.
it, what these guys hear on
Yeah.
social media at any point. So.
Dude, and Flo is such an easy guy to root for. Like, he's such a good locker room guy, too, that I think that only adds to it.
I was going to say, you're adding to it now.
Well, he is.
I know, but I mean, like, if we're talking about the competition for the two of them last year,
Well,
I'm
that's
just
fair.
saying.
Yeah, and I guess I just didn't really interact with John Mingo as often, so I don't have the same. Can't vouch the same. My last point or question, because I know we gotta go, is on the running backs. That unofficial depth chart, unofficial for a reason.
Sure.
But for Malik Davis to be listed 4th on the unofficial depth chart that they released right before, I mean, Malik Davis, I think, would be this guy behind Javonte Williams based on what we've seen throughout camp. And obviously, Jane Blue, different skill set. I know you brought up the RB2 conversation on social media, and they were like, why does it have to be RB2? Like, these guys can be used in different scenarios. And that is 100% true.
Yeah.
But I guess that's definitely another area where I'm going to be looking at who they decide to keep and basically in what order once we get an official depth chart.
Because those are two spots that may seesaw with each other.
Yes.
Like if you keep 6 wide receivers, you probably can't keep 4 running backs.
Yeah, or 3
So-
quarterbacks, which I don't think they will do. But
I don't think you can. But yeah, you need to be keeping 2 quarterbacks just because you need that spot. You need
and
that,
there's the rule where you can have the third, right?
the
Like,
emergency
yeah,
third. Yeah. You can make that work. But I've liked things that we have seen from Jaden Blue. But I've also, to your point, liked some things that we've seen from Phil Maffa. I've liked some things that we've seen from Malik Davis. Malik Davis has in regular season proof to point to and say, I did that. Sure, it was against the Giants in the final regular season game of the year, but it's still regular season action against at least mostly a team of ones that you're going against, and he went out there and made plays and had a 100-yard game. Like that's not nothing. So those 2 spots are fascinating in terms of what they're going to do and how they're going to parse that out and how they're going to try and play the game of who can we sneak through waivers. And
yeah.
because that's the other thing is like somebody may make the roster not because necessarily they're the better player, but because the team feels like we
If we let
can't
him
get
go,
him
yeah.
through waivers, but we might be able to, even though he might be the better player in our eyes, he may not be as coveted because of his position or because of his size or because of whatever. We can sneak him through waivers easier than we can get him through, and then we'll flip-flop him after the fact. Like they have to play so many games through this whole stretch.